knows what New York City did with its waste up until circa 1920, 1930s? Legally did with its waste, as in the city of New York did with its waste that was collected. Anybody know? Sorry, so who knows what they, up until the 1920s, 30s?
He dumped it in the bay?
Close, they dumped it in the East River, okay? And we actually have pictures in the New York City Department of Sanitation of these kind of horse and buggy trucks that the sanitation department in New York City used to have back in the turn of the 20th century, all lined up by the East River, dumping waste into the East River. After 1920s, 1930s, what was the next phase of what was going on as you started to see high-rise pre-war buildings being built? What did New York City do with its garbage? Anybody know? No? No, closed on incinerator. Anybody know? We burnt the garbage in the buildings. Okay? So if you go to a lot of buildings in New York City and you wonder, wait a second, you know, in these modern cities I go to, there's all this places to put recycling and organics and this and that. What's going on in my pre-war building? Well, your pre-war building was designed to burn garbage. And if you look back at stories about the air quality in New York City in 1950, 1960, 1970, some of the stories are similar to what you read about in Beijing today. It wasn't the same cause as what you have in Beijing today, which is coal-fired power plants and automobiles. It was a little bit of that. It was a lot of just burning garbage right here in New York City. In the 1950s and 60s, we transitioned to dumping our waste in a landfill. We recognized that dumping it in the river causes all kinds of health issues. Burning it causes all kinds of health issues. Right? There's not much of a reason to have a city if all of its residents are either dying from polluted water or dying from polluted air. So said, hey, we're not going to dump it in the river. We're not going to burn it. We're going to put it in a hole in the ground. Anybody here from Staten Island? Right. So you were New York City's hole in the ground. Yes. All of New York City's garbage went to a landfill in Staten Island called Fresh Kills. It was uncovered. Okay? So it smelled. There were all kinds of birds and animals that would go there. And folks in Staten Island said, hey, enough is enough. We're not willing to take New York City's garbage. And in 1990s, Giuliani decided to close Fresh Kills. Now we have a major problem in New York City. We have a lot of people. We just heard about all the people that we have. And for the exception of a small period in New York City's history, the population has continued to grow. We've got a big problem. We can't dump it in the river. We can't burn it. We can't stick it in a hole in Staten Island. Where are we going to send the garbage? It's got to go someplace. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, is what we do with our waste today and what we should be doing with our waste tomorrow, which is making sure that everything is recycled. A little bit about what I do today. So as you heard, I used to be the Deputy Commissioner for Sanitation, Recycling, Sustainability in the Bloomberg administration. Today I run an investment fund that has a number of different investment vehicles, from a debt fund to a venture fund to a foundation. And we're investing in building out the circular economy, which is what we started to put in place in the Bloomberg administration, and what Commissioner Garcia, who's currently the commissioner of DSNY, is doing a great job expanding. And what we mean by the circular economy is that today, and about every year since the Industrial Revolution, the way our economy worked was you extracted a natural resource like oil or a metal, or cut down a tree, you turned it into a product, you got done using the product, and you stuck it in a landfill, and then you needed more product, you went back and you grabbed more out of the earth, and you used it, and you stuck more of it in a hole. And eventually people realized, wait, this is being called modern, the Industrial Revolution, but in fact, it's imploding on itself. There's no more resources to pull out, or those resources are becoming exceedingly expensive to pull out, and there's no space to put this stuff in, or it's becoming more expensive to put this stuff in. But what were people doing before the Industrial Revolution? They actually reused everything. Maybe we should go back to that model. That worked really, really well for thousands and thousands of years before the Industrial Revolution. And that's what the circular economy is about. You start with a product and package that gets manufactured. A consumer learns about how to recycle that package. It gets collected by its municipality. It gets recycled. And that material goes back to a processing facility that then gets turned into another product and package. And that's what we're going to focus on in our conversation today is what's going on with waste in New York City and where can we get to in terms of building the circular economy. Who has something in their hand, a bottle, a plate, a fork, a piece of paper that they're not going to use after the meeting today? Who's got something in their hand? Okay. Traditionally, people in America view that as, I'm just going to throw it in the garbage. I mean, if there's a recycling container nearby, I'll put it in recycle. But I'm basically done with it. It's out of sight, out of mind. Now, in reality, what's going to happen is your tax dollars are going to pay to send it to a landfill if you don't recycle it. What we're in the business of today and what New York City as a government is starting to govern by is we actually want to buy that material and we want to sell it back to markets to turn it into new products. And that's the way I want you to think of everything that's in your hand today and when you go home. This is a map that shows you where municipal solid waste, that's the waste we generate in cities, is trucked, barged, and railed around the United States looking for landfill space. U.S. cities today spend over $5 billion a year exporting waste to landfill. You don't need to know much about recycling, waste, transportation, logistics to look at this map and say, somebody's got to clean this up. This is not working, okay? We have other countries that send us their waste. So what does this look like? So what's interesting about this is that much of what is being sent to landfill actually has a market. There's actually buyers for it, all right? And we'll get to that in a second. That's how screwed up the system has become. We're paying as taxpayers billions of dollars to put something in a hole that there's actually a buyer for. What does this all look like on a practical, let's just bring it down to your everyday life? How many people in the last month were on I-95 or the Jersey Turnpike in the last month? Okay. These trucks that you saw on the Jersey Turnpike, you thought to yourself, oh man, these guys cause a lot of traffic, they back things up, but you know what? They've got products and goods in them that, you know, I buy, okay, I can understand it. I have a correction for you. A good portion of those trucks, they just have someone else's garbage that you're driving around to a landfill, okay? So this is the practical reality of what goes on. This stuff is shipped, barged, railed, trucked around the United States, going to landfill space, takes up a lot of space on our highways, causes a lot of traffic, costs us as taxpayers a lot of money. Let's get down to New York City for a moment. This is where New York City trucks, barges, and rails its garbage. So remember we talked about New York City used to throw it in the East River, then it burned it, then it stuck it in Staten Island, and then in the 90s it said, we can't do any of this anymore, we gotta find a place to take it, all right? So New York City's garbage today, some of it goes to New Jersey where it's burned, about 17%. The rest of it goes to a landfill in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and South Carolina. Okay? Now, you can think about the environmental hazard of driving all this waste around and it creates a big hole. How many of you paid your taxes in New York City last year? Okay. I'm assuming, wow, I was expecting everybody to raise their hand. Just everybody raise your hand that you paid your taxes. So this is on camera, I don't create an issue here. Okay. All right. Well, $350 million of New York City taxpayer dollars, $350 million New York City taxpayer dollars were used to send that waste to those landfills. So you could be an incredibly right-wing, you can't wait to get home right now to turn on Fox News, Republican, you think Al Gore is the devil incarnate, but at the end of the day, I don't care if you don't care about the environment, this is New York City taxpayer dollars. It could be used for teachers. It could be used for roads. Could be used for firemen. Could be used for you to just keep it in your pocket that are used to send all of this stuff to landfill. Now, maybe there's no alternative. This is what we got to do. Good news. There's an active, very real alternative, which is to recycle all of this material, save money, generate revenue. When you recycle in New York City, your material actually gets processed locally. So half of all of the paper in New York City today, unfortunately, gets sent to landfill because not everybody recycles. Good news is the other half does get recycled. The half that doesn't get recycled gets driven to a landfill in South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio. We pay top dollar sticking in a hole. The other half, the responsible citizens, the fiscally conservative citizens, oh yeah, and the environmentally conscious ones. See there's a nice connection between fiscally conservative and environmentally conscious. New Yorkers that recycle that paper, that material goes to a recycling facility in Staten Island. That city gets paid a minimum of $10 a ton for that paper. It can't get paid less than $10 a ton. That paper in Staten Island is turned into pizza boxes that is then sold in New York City. City generates revenue, city creates jobs, people come into the city to buy the paper, so on and so forth. The metal, glass, and plastic goes to one of the world's most advanced recycling facilities. It's called Sims Metal Management in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. It's a $150 million facility that was built in the Bloomberg administration. Takes all of New York City's paper, metal, glass, and plastic, and the city pays $70 a ton to have its recyclables processed. That's less than what it costs to send it to landfill, which is about $100 a ton, and then it shares in the revenue of the material that is sold. So that's the story of where your garbage is going if you put it in the garbage, and where it's going if it's recycled, and the economic value. Let's give you an idea of the economics of what goes on in recycling today. The things that are worth a lot of money are cardboard is worth a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to cut down a tree. Got to get it to the paper manufacturer, costs a lot of money. It's much cheaper to just take paper that was recycled in Staten Island and take the paper manufacturer in Staten Island and turn it into something. So cardboard is worth a lot of money. Office paper is worth a lot of money. You can see there the value per ton. Aluminum, worth a lot of money, okay? Why is aluminum worth a lot of money? Aluminum comes from iron ore, which is mostly derived from developing countries in Africa. It's very dangerous to get it out. It's very energy intensive, very expensive to make virgin aluminum. PET plastic, very valuable. That's your water bottle, okay? HDPE, that's your laundry detergent, also very valuable. Plastic film, those are your bags, no value to them, cost money, you got to landfill it. Rigid plastics are like caps, and there's some value there. Glass, we have a major issue with today. There's no value to recycling glass. In the question and answer period, I can get into why that is. Now, I wanted to show you specifically what the value is to your recyclables in New York City. There is a simpler version of this, which is just spend a few minutes on a New York City street corner, look at a New York City garbage container. It's disgusting. In a couple of minutes, someone will come by, they'll open up that disgusting garbage container, and they'll pick out bottles and cans. There's value to those bottles and cans. That person is willing to stick their hands in a New York City garbage container and extract that material. There's value to recycling. Now, we've spent most of the time talking about curbside recycling. I'm going to go through what the waste characterization of New York City looks like in a second. But just as a preview, your standard curbside recycling, which is your paper, your metal, glass, and plastic, that represents about 35% of your waste stream. The biggest chunk of our waste stream is food waste, leaf and yard waste. It's about 35 to 40% of the waste stream. So most of what we're actually sending to landfill, and if your household recycles, it's not 40%, right? You've pulled out your recyclables, about 60, 70, 80% of what's in your garbage is actually food waste. Go home and measure this, and you'll see that most of what's in your waste stream, if you're recycling, is food waste. Food waste is a major emitter of greenhouse gas when it goes to a landfill. It decomposes and emits methane into the atmosphere. But great news. You can take this food waste, obviously you're not going to take it to a recycling facility and turn it into a bottle. You can actually do something almost even better with it. You can take food waste and you can turn it into natural gas through a process called anaerobic digestion. You can turn it into compost, which is a fertilizer. And so under the Bloomberg administration, one of the major initiatives was to start separating out New York City's food waste, 40% of our waste stream. A couple of initiatives. Converted all of New York City's public schools to separate food waste collection. If you go to a New York City public school today, you'll see these brown bins outside of the public school. Those are the organics bins. You had the drop-off green market programs. Anybody participate in the drop-off green market programs? You bring your food waste? Okay, great, right? It's about 20,000 New Yorkers participate in that program. And then we started rolling out curbside organics collection. Anybody in New York City have one of these brown bins outside their home? Where do you live?
Well, I actually enrolled in the community center I work.
Okay, to do it. So you community center. Anybody, where do you live? Sunset Park, Brooklyn. Okay, so single family home or apartment? Okay, so anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, so there's about 140,000 single family homes today in New York City that have received this program. They've gotten a brown bin. They put all of their food waste in that bin. City comes by once or twice a week, picks up the food waste. All right? Now, what's interesting about this program and how sometimes you have to be creative in terms of selling programs within a city is often when we would go to speak to community boards about a separate food waste collection, what do you think the biggest opposition was that we would get?
Rats.
Exactly, we would get rats. And we would say, oh, this is really interesting. We go, well, what do you do with your food waste now? And people would say, well, we put it in the garbage. So, well, what do you do with your garbage? We go, we put it out on the curb. Okay, well, what if we took that food waste that's in a bag out on the curb and we put it in a hermetically sealed container that's 2 inches thick, that is on wheels, lifted above the ground? And if studies have shown that if food waste is 2 inches above the ground, rats can't smell it or get to it. They're like, oh my God, it's a great idea. We're like, we're gonna do that. Say, this is great. We're gonna get rid of the rats in our neighborhood. Rolled out our food waste program, okay? Sometimes you have to be creative in terms of your communication. So this is a major initiative in New York City right now. The current commissioner, Commissioner Garcia, is rolling out food waste collection in New York City. One of the obstacles is developing processing infrastructure to process this food waste. A lot of the food waste today is actually going to an anaerobic digester that the city owns at the wastewater treatment facility in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. It's being turned into gas that's going into the grid. Just to give you an example of where technology has gotten, you can take the gas off of an anaerobic digester and convert it into compressed natural gas. New York City's sanitation vehicles run on natural gas, but can run on compressed natural gas. So you will see a system in the next 5 to 10 years where New York City sanitation vehicles will pick up food waste, they'll take it to the digester will convert it into compressed natural gas, the sanitation vehicle will drive 10 yards away and refill on the food waste it dropped off the day before, okay? Another major initiative that got rolled out in New York City a few years ago is prior to 2011, when Bloomberg became very focused on recycling, how many garbage containers do you think there were on New York City street corners? Garbage containers, not recycling containers, garbage containers. Who wants to take a guess? 25,000 garbage containers. We're a massive city. How many recycling containers do you think there were? There were about 1,000. There were about 1,000. Now, what's interesting about that is, what are you generally walking around New York City street corners with, or on streets, right? You're walking around with a bottle, a can, right? A newspaper. So New York City's infrastructure was completely flipped, right? We were making it convenient for people to take their paper, metal, glass, and plastic, put it in a garbage container. City would come and collect it and use their tax dollars to send it to a landfill. And one of the things we recognize is, hey, we got to change that infrastructure around quickly. So we started rolling out these containers, which now you see all over New York City, they're continuing to roll them out. There were 25,000 ordered to put the proper infrastructure in place to collect material on the street. But the other major reason for this was it's a great marketing campaign. Right? You're actively engaging people on the street. They're seeing recycling constantly. Another major initiative that got rolled out that's continuing to expand is the New York City Textile collection program. Anybody have this in their building? Right? Okay, so any building 9 units and above can request a textile recycling container, put all your textiles in it, the city comes in, collects it. This is our e-waste program that got launched. Anybody have this in their building yet? Right, okay. So your building can request this, 9 units and above, put all of your electronic waste in there, the city comes and collects it. The textile and the e-waste program, currently being expanded in the existing administration, it's the only city in North America that has this program. San Francisco, Seattle, which are the shining jewels of sustainability, don't have these programs yet. All right, so I just wanted to give you guys kind of a view of the waste stream and what it looks like. So about 27% of our waste stream is paper and cardboard, about 4% is glass, 8% is metals, 12% is plastic. Then we got our textiles, which is about 8%, wood, yard trimmings, food waste. So you can see kind of what's in our waste stream there. Curbside recycling, right? That makes up about 53%, okay. Organics is 34%. Textiles, interestingly, if you look at all the textiles that's in our waste stream, shockingly, it's about 8% of our waste stream. Okay. That gives you some background on what's going on in New York City and our waste stream and the opportunities to recycle. One of the things I wanted to end the presentation on is to encourage everybody to get more actively involved in the waste and recycling industry in New York, nationally. How many of you went to college with the objective to come out and work in the waste and recycling industry? Great, we got one, okay. How many of you went to graduate school with the goal of being like, I'm going to the waste and recycling industry? Okay. My goal by the end of this presentation is for you guys to be like, you know, if I ever went back to school or if I ever switch careers, I'm going into the waste and recycling industry, all right? So Republic Services is the second largest waste and recycling company in North America. It's about a $10 billion publicly traded company. Anybody know who the largest shareholder is in Republic? Anybody want to guess?
Bill Gates.
Not Bloomberg. What?
Bill Gates.
Oh, Elizabeth.
I already know that.
Oh, Bill Gates. She's from the Department of Sanitation. Elizabeth Balkin, everybody. Say hello. All right. You're supposed to answer the hard questions. All right. All right. Next is Waste Connections. They're the third largest waste hauler in North America. If any of you have investments in your 401k and public securities or the stock market, over the last decade, Waste Connections has been one of the best performing stocks in the United States, okay? Here are some of the top venture firms in the world. True North Venture Partners, Mission Point, Generation Investment Management, they're all invested in the waste and recycling space, most specifically in progressive recycling initiatives. And then last thing is I just wanted to give you an example of some super innovative initiatives going on in the waste and recycling space to just kind of get you guys thinking about where this is going, right? Because we started off the conversation talking about New York City used to just kind of pick up everything, you know, throw it in the river. Then it was like, all right, we're going to burn everything. Then it went to like, we're just going to stick it in a hole. And now we've progressed tremendously in the last 20, 30 years. We're actually starting to recycle most of our material. And now we're getting to that place where we're actually starting to pick up our food waste, starting to pick up our textiles, starting to pick up our e-waste. But here's some super innovative initiatives just kind of get you going. This is a company called Home Biogas. It's based in Israel, and they've developed a home-based anaerobic digester. So if you have a single-family home, you have a backyard, a lot of people think of New York City as high-rise buildings, but in fact, you got the Queens, you got the Brooklyn, you got the Staten Island. In terms of single-family homes, we're probably still the largest city in America, right? If we were single-family homes, probably same size as Los Angeles or bigger. Right? So this is a household-size anaerobic digester, goes in your backyard. You put all of your food waste into it, it converts it into gas, pumps into your stove, and you can cook off of it. Now New York City doesn't have to send a sanitation vehicle down your street, pick up your food waste, and take it. You process it on your own, generate your own gas. Great innovation. Curb Your Clutter. This is a innovation that's going to be rolling out in the fall. It's a text-based system that allows you to schedule a collection of your electronics and your textiles at your home. It's a local jeweler, Linhart Design. Alicia Keys is one of her stuff. Jennifer Lopez is one of her stuff. The unique thing about her is everything she makes is using recycled metals and ethically sourced stones. So just a great example of you can be focused on recycling and still be extremely fashionable. I can tell you, Alicia Keys and Jennifer Lopez had no idea that they were wearing stuff that was made from recycled metals. They just loved the designs. Renewal Workshop. Who knows what if you return something to the Banana Republic, the Gap, North Face, who knows what happens to it? Button fell off, zipper didn't work, got a little rip. What do they do with it today? H&M does that. But besides that, anybody know? They pay to burn it. Try it out. Go to Banana Republic, go to Gap. And not to single any of those guys out, every retailer except for Patagonia does this. They don't make their own clothes anymore. In the 1950s they did. Today they don't make their own clothes. They're made in China. So when you come back and you're like, a button fell off, my zipper broke, they don't actually have the capabilities to fix it. And they don't want to donate it because it's this year's fashion. It just came out. And they go and donate it to the Goodwill. Someone who, quote unquote, doesn't represent their brand is now walking around with it. So hush, hush, they prefer to just pay to burn it, okay? Now, it's a cost. And what we like to do is try and take costs and turn them into economic opportunities that promote sustainability. So the Renewal Workshop is a company that's come to all of these brands and said, hey, send me all of your returns. Don't burn them, send them to me. We will refurbish them to spec, send them back to you, put them on the sales rack. And now we've taken a massive amount of stuff out of the landfill and we've returned it back into the system. Wanted to just end with that because it's a great example of the circular economy. Okay. Lastly, this is my last slide of cardboard. Anybody has any of this stuff? I'd love to buy it from you. So, all right. Thank you very much, guys.